So that one of the initiation processes for getting into that club is burning a £50 note.
Rothschild, Nathaniel Rothschild.
Mr. Rothschild.
No, Mr. Rothschild.
These people, when they do all these things when they're younger, that yes, not only are they encouraged, one of the guys told me that they kind of made a fetish out of doing as much damage as possible. Getting into the club is almost entirely dependent on wealth.
They don't know when to stop.
And its former members include the men today running London, the country, and the economy.
I am sick to death of poor people!
A lot of what happens with the Bullingdon Club isn't just sort of useful indiscretions. These people go on to maintain the connections they made in the Bullingdon Club 20, 30 years later, when they're in high positions in journalism, politics.
The World War was close to King George VI as the Lord Steward of the royal household, but he accompanied Lord Brocket to celebrate Hitler's 50th birthday. It was a matter of personal delight to Hitler that the Duke, in order to have dirt on each other so that then they can possibly be blackmailed in the future or they'll keep quiet, as we were hearing the Mafia Omerta sign. But what when these people are let leash on a country, on an economy?
By the time that I was 12, 13, 14, I was very aware that faith was a huge part of how I saw the world.
When did you make the decision, I'm actually going to study this at Oxford? Like I actually want to continue this pursuit with theology?
Yeah.
Was it right away? Did you consider a second subject?
I sort of thought about history at one point, but it was quite clear to me, I think, that theology was the answer. You know, I was very interested in it. As I said, I was just very, very interested in it. By the time I was 15, I had begun the conversion experience that I then went through for the next 5 years to Catholicism, which culminated in me converting when I was at Oxford.
George Farmer, Candace Owens' handler, or actually partner. Candace Owens recently made a claim that she has had a handler since she and Charlie went viral.
And I believe, and I'm saying this retrospectively, that from that moment onward, Charlie and I were assigned handlers.
And after she made that claim, she dropped it like a hot potato, as many of her claims, and disappeared. She has left us undone, but I have been researching a video on her and her husband for a while, and somehow I see how much this ties into her and her husband. And we are going to look today into George Farmer's history. Candace Owens is the queen of deep dive. She likes to look into people's background, their genealogy. Why don't we take a look into just a little aspect of George's life while he was at Oxford? And also, let's look into his Catholicism. Let's look into his religion, because so many people think that they are in a certain court, another segment of the Catholic Church, and others think that they are not actually Catholics. So in today's video, we're going to look deep into them and see, is Candace Owens actually someone under George Farmer? Because one of my videos I made before, I told you guys that George Farmer said he had known Andrew Tate before Andrew Tate was Andrew Tate. And I told you guys that I believe, allegedly, that Candace Owens and Andrew Tate are products of George Farmer. And that is something that we had been developing. But there is another aspect today we are going to look into very deeply that will make you realize that George Farmer is not the Catholic, beautiful man everybody think he is. People think he is such a quiet, very reserved, old, retired energy, and Candace Owens is the problem. But today's video will let you know that, no, this man has some skeletons we should be looking at very, very carefully. Now, let's start with this. George Farmer said he joined the Catholic Church. He grew up Protestant. He grew up in an Anglican household. Him and his family, they are Anglicans, they are Protestants, they were never Catholics. But then he started converting to Catholicism when he was 13, 14.
Introduced to faith your entire life.
Yeah.
You are drawn to it at I would say rather, it's very young, 13 years old, but so that's how you are. And When did you make the decision, I'm actually going to study this at Oxford? Like, I actually want to continue this pursuit with theology.
Yeah.
Was it right away? Did you consider a second subject?
It was, I sort of thought about history at one point, but it was quite clear to me, I think, that theology was the answer. You know, I was very interested in it. As I said, I was just very, very interested in it. By the time I was 15, I had begun the conversion experience that I then went through for the next 5 years to Catholicism, which culminated in me converting when I was at Oxford.
Let's slow this part down because this is pretty big, obviously, especially as, like I said, someone.
Now, I am not saying that him converting to Catholicism is the problem. No, that is not a problem. That is beautiful. You can be any Christian you want to be, Catholic, Protestant, whatever, as long as you're serving your Lord Jesus Christ, as long as you are actually doing what you're supposed to do, please, hooray to you. But my worry here is that Candace Owens' husband, George Farmer, said he did two interesting things at the same damn time. And those are things that shouldn't be done at the same time. These are the things George did. George Farmer said he joined the Catholic Church when he was at Oxford, and not completely joined. He said he started his journey into Catholicism around 13, 14. And by the time he was in Oxford, his conversion completed. So I started asking myself, this man says he is the very Catholic kind, the man who first of all grew up in a very humble home where there were Christians, and then he just converted to Catholicism. It's not a different thing. It's still Christianity. And the same man joined the Bullingdon Club while he was at that same Oxford University. People, make it make sense. Make it make sense. And I know many of you are thinking that maybe the Bullingdon Club is just this cute and soft club where nothing really happens. It's just people playing around. But no, I am going to give you videos of him telling you about his Catholicism, about his faith, about how he really sees God as a person of order, of love, of all of that thing. And then you go and look at others when you see the activities of him. And it is not a matter of, I am just speculating. I am going to show you an actual picture of George Farmer as a member of Bullingdon Club. I am not making this up. Even on his Wikipedia page, whom his wife has claimed that when she and Charlie started gaining fame, they found someone who could edit Wikipedia pages, which means they could make your page to your taste, curated to your taste, which means definitely, and this is public knowledge, it's not something that is in hiding, that her husband was in the Bullingdon Club, and he finalized his joining the Catholicism while he was at Oxford. And he also, in that same damn time, joined the very chaotic Bullingdon Club. This is not a very good club to begin with. This is the kind of club where if you're part of the chaos. It is the chaos of the world where people, the activities were so bad that the Oxford had to ban them from so many of their venues. Their activities are so terrible. Can you imagine their initiation? Allegedly, their initiation ritual is you burning a £50 in front of a beggar. How is a Christian the one who is joining a club where they do things like that? And now he is here all holy and thou telling us that he cares about the common man. But he joined a club where they were burning £50 in front of a beggar as initiation. Guys, let me play this couple of videos for you to see what I'm telling you about. And just as a reminder, former members of this club are going to shock you. I am talking about people in high society, in powerful places, people who are ruling not only the UK. Please, this is going to blow your mind. I don't know how he got linked up with people who are involved in such activities. The Bullingdon Club is a private all-male dining club for Oxford University students. it is known for its wealthy members, grand banquets, and bad behavior, including vandalism of restaurants and student rooms. The club selects its members not only on the grounds of wealth and willingness to participate, but also by reference to their education. The Bullingdon Club was originally a sporting club dedicated to cricket and horse racing, although club diners gradually became its principal activity. Membership is expensive, with tailor-made uniforms, regular gourmet hospitality, and a tradition of on-the-spot payment for damage. Some members have gone on to become leading figures with British society and the political establishment. Former members include two kings of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, that is, Edward VII and Edward VIII. Three prime ministers, that is, David Cameron, Archibald Primrose, 5th Earl of Rosebery, and Boris Johnson, and two chancellors of the Exchequer, that is George Osborne and Lord Rudolph Churchill. The Bullingdon is often featured in fiction and drama. This club was featured because of its activities. A movie was made about it just earlier, not too bad. The club has a reputation that is not normal. The club has always been noted for its wealthy members and banquets and boisterous rituals, including the vandalism of restaurants, public houses, and college rooms, complemented by a tradition of on-the-spot payment of damage. So they come into a restaurant, they come and make damages, they scatter everything, break everything, then they turn around and throw money at the owner like, okay, you poor puppet, you take this, go take care of the damages we have made. That is the kind of individuals we're talking about. No consideration for any other normal person. Its ostentatious display of wealth attracts controversy. Since some former members have subsequently achieved high political positions, notably the former British Prime Minister David Cameron, former Chancellor of Exchequer, George Osborne, and the former Prime Minister Boris Johnson. And this is one thing else that was very much interesting. They say all of these people tend to have blackmail allegedly on each other so they can control each other in future, and they always tend to ask for favors from each other. It doesn't matter. Once you're a member of the club, you're always a member of the club, according to what they are saying. We are going to play all of those videos. I had to dig deep into the internal part of the internet to find all of this for you all. You are not going to believe it. George Farmer is not as innocent as many people would like it. He is chaotic, even maybe more chaotic than his wife actually is.
It's like having it kept secret.
But what I find interesting is that clearly these people go back a long way. They were educated at school together because they were all at Eton. They all then went to the same college in Oxford, and now they're all running the government. And it seems that they've got the judicial system and the police in the back pocket of some of that establishment if there are people going to court and they're not necessarily,
The police will let them go after a night where they smash a restaurant up. A couple of years ago, a restaurant owner wanted to have the group charged and the police refused to do it. This was back in 2004. Effectively, it's not even so much what they do, but the fact that they always get away with it.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's almost taken as read the drugs, I suppose. But
they created this club, and allegedly they were claiming that this club is a club where they can go and play cricket, do some other fun games like horse racing. But according to many accounts, many of them don't even care about cricket or horse racing. They show up there for the elaborate banquets and for the destruction of property, which they go out and eventually do, and for gathering blackmail on one another, keeping it for future use, or maybe talking to the future ones for help on all their crimes because they have all the police in their back pocket.
In one case, the most recent match register just has Bullingdon gave up the match after a couple of overs. So Cricket Club was kind of a veneer to give some sort of respectability to it.
It certainly doesn't sound like a dream team to run the country, does it?
No, not particularly. And I think that's one of the things that often comes in for criticism with the club, is that getting into the club is almost entirely dependent on wealth, particularly landed wealth. There is you don't have to be particularly intelligent or socially savvy or anything to get into the Bullingdon Club. It is basically just the richest of the rich.
Well, in most of the videos I posted regarding George Farmer, so many people asked me, and rightly so, he is called a genius. Why is he called a genius? What makes him a genius? And that is a question many people cannot answer. But if you can look at this, you can tell them this is a club where when you enter, they can fix your reputation and call you the best things in the world. You don't have to be a genius. It will be made so much that everything written about you will say you're a genius so much that people start to believe it. It's the same thing his wife was saying on a podcast, calling people like Elon Musk, Mr. Beast out for claiming they are these huge people. Meanwhile, they are probably given to us by the military industrial complex. And when you start looking into her own husband, you start wondering, is her husband actually a genius or just someone that was given to us as a genius by the Bullingdon industrial complex? That is a very good question, because when you look into his patch, it is looking more and more sketchy.
I mean, is it fair to say that as part of your Bullingdon Club membership, you're rewarded for doing as much damage as possible, and it's a kind of way of institutionalising bad behaviour?
Well, one of the common allegations that is made is that these people, when they do all these things when they're younger, that yes, not only are they encouraged, one of the guys told me that they kind of made a fetish out of doing as much damage as possible. But it's also that if you're a group of 10 very wealthy people who are going to probably go on to very important things in society, everyone's got dirt on each other. It means that everyone will stick together later in life because they all have the dirt. They all have the dirt on each other. They effectively all have some form of influence, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. But I mean, it's also a bit worrying, is that they might start doing the same sort of damage to the country and to us.
Yeah. Well, that, I think, probably outside of my expertise, but it's not difficult to draw parallels.
I'll tell you what, I'll, at this point, Nick, I'll bring in old Labour Oxford economist Martin Summers. I mean, Martin's an old Oxford student, not the same college. I mean, which college did you go to, Martin?
I went to St Catherine's College. Charwell Polytechnic, as some of the posher colleges used to refer to.
I mean, Nick.
And these are not the only problems. Allegedly, there are even incidences where someone or some people might have lost their lives. There is an incident here which they are going to talk about, and pay attention. This is not just a couple of rich children destroying things because they feel like it and doing other things. This is a gang of individuals who think because of the money they have, the privilege they have, they can get away with anything.
Nick, also, what about deaths? Because there have been some deaths associated with the Bullingdon Club, some quite nasty ones, haven't there? And also, I mean, drug taking, it seems a little bit tame compared to talking about the people that have died.
So one story that I found that is all on record, has been through the courts actually, was in 1977, where a couple of guys, and one of them in particular, the driver, were in the Bullingdon Club at the time and were apparently, according to a source I have, coming back from one of their dinners. And effectively, the guy, now I have to make perfectly clear here that he was not convicted of drunk driving. He was convicted of dangerous driving causing death after quite a long trial. Now you can see a nice photo of him in the Bullingdon Club from that exact year. Gets up with a fine and a driving ban, effectively. Now, he crashed into a car and he killed 4 other people, one of which was a Chelsea footballer, quite a well-known guy called Peter Houseman. Now, as for why this has never come out, I'm not entirely sure. Either people have kind of kept the omerta about it, or because it was about 10 years before Cameron or Osborne were involved, it's never been directly linked to them. I thought what that showed a bit more is that a lot of these people will do whatever kind of damage to property it is or damage to life, but they almost never suffer any sort of consequences for it, if that makes sense.
In order to have dirt on each other so that then they can possibly be blackmailed in the future, or they'll keep quiet, as we were hearing the mafia omerta sign. But what when these people are let leash on a country, on an economy?
Well, I mean, I think you can compare them to something like the Skull and Bones Society at Yale and Harvard in the US. These elite kind of clubs for the super wealthy, where they basically do things which leads to them having dirt on each other, etc. And of course, the Bullingdon Club is not entirely Tory, but pretty much so. I mean, certainly, correct me if I'm wrong, Nick, but you have to go to Eton to be in the Bullingdon Club, do you not? Perhaps you could enlighten me there. I always presumed
the majority of people come from Eton, not exclusively. Probably about 70-odd% do. George Osborne went to St Paul's, and not everyone goes to Eton, but it definitely helps.
Candace Owens is in the streets talking and singing about people who are linked to the Rothschilds, people who are linked to de Beers and very suspicious families, and people who are linked to royalty and things like that, to people who are linked to elites and even Nats or Yahtsees. I'm trying to be careful. In Yahtsees. But then her husband was in a club with individuals who have been linked to all of those things and more. Please, if you think I'm joking, here's another clip.
Well, let's look at some of those. There's Lord Halifax, during World War II, was the guy who was seen as the most Nazi British lord, who Rudolf Hess went to try and meet up with in 1941. There's also more modern version of the Bullingdon Club, the Dukes of Norfolk, Northumberland, Westminster, Roxburgh and Buccleuch. Now, I noticed also that the Duke of Buccleuch, back in the Second World War, was close to King George VI as the Lord Steward of the royal household, but he accompanied Lord Brocket to celebrate Hitler's 50th birthday. It was a matter of personal delight to Hitler that the Duke, a man who served in the very court of Britain's royal family, was there. And Buccleuch was opposed to any war with the Nazis. When it did break out in 1939, he joined something called the Peace Aims Group to try and urge a truce with Germany, letting Hitler keep all the lands he'd stolen in Europe. So you've got some interesting characters here. More modern one, Rupert Soames and the Rothschilds family. Jacob Rothschild is apparently worth $7 billion, although a chap called Kevin Carr, who we have on this show quite regularly, Nick, who used to work for the Sunday Times Rich List, would probably disagree. I mean, this really is a pretty impressive list of people, including names like von Bismarck and as you said, Cecil Rhodes. Yeah.
Some other interesting people, for instance, one is Nicky Oppenheimer, who used to be chair of De Beers, the mining group that was set up by Cecil Rhodes. It's not just Tories as well. There's a UKIP figure, quite a senior UKIP figure, Stuart Wheeler, who was treasurer of the party until 2014, used to be a large Tory donor, donated quite a lot directly to UKIP, so there's that influence there as well. It's far from just the Tories. Lord Longford, who was a Labour peer until very recently, was in the club in 1925. It's really quite a staggering list. I'm sure others will come to me. Tom Lawson, who was son of Chancellor Nigel Lawson. I did a piece for Byline on what happened there. In 2000, the club got effectively smashed up a marquee, and it took 30 cops to shut that particular party down. Now, this is all verified. It's been reported on. That was reported on in Parliament at the time, except Bullingdon Club, as not that much was known about it then. It never really got that much traction.
Okay, what about stories about the Prime Minister, though, David Cameron? And have there been denials, and have you managed to get to the bottom of any of them?
So there's the one story that everyone knows, or that has been commonly reported by Cameron, about Cameron, is how a bunch of them all spent the night in a cell. This was in 1987. Boris was there as well. However, I've managed to get accounts from the time, and Cameron has always denied he was there. Now, that's not true at all. Cameron definitely was there. What happened is they smashed a restaurant window, the police were called, they got chased down into the botanical gardens of Oxford,
And some people might be thinking that, oh, he was still a young boy, he stopped it. Listen, there is evidence proving that these people don't tend to leave these things. There are evidence showing that these people tend to meet up with each other again years after. They have some kind of blackmail on each other, and they tend to hold each other to account, and when they need any favors from each other, they tend to call or knock on each other's doors and say, hey, this is what I need from you, and you have to do it. And you have to understand, this is no ordinary club.
Bones in the United States is that it's not just something that happens at Oxford and a bit of fun that then gets forgotten about, Nick, because I know you've put together some evidence that the Bullingdon Club people regularly meet up, actually, after they've long left Oxford.
Yes, so, and I don't want to, I'm not going to say how I know this, but I know at least two occasions, one of which has been reported was reported, I think, in the Diary of the Standard about 7 years ago, where they all met up to do, this was just when Boris was first running for mayor, so a little bit longer, and about 6 of them from the same club met up to do a fundraiser for them. I also know that they often, or at least once in the last couple of years, had a reunion dinner at the house of one of the guys who was in Cameron and Boris's club, and Cameron and Boris were all there for it. Now, you can say, okay, well, they're just catching up with university friends, but when you have people for that same club, you know, writing about them in national newspapers favourably, or you have Cameron, in one case, appointed one of the guys who was in the Bullingdon Club with to oversee a panel on state school spending. It's difficult to say they're just catching up with old friends when it's clear that actually, in some cases, they may be having influence on policy.
Now, Nick, whereabouts can people follow your work?
Anything about the club, any of its traditions, any of its history, anything like that. And so I decided, well, something needs to be done about that. So I decided to really, really try and dig deep into the club, all its histories, all its traditions, but not just that, to work out the links between what people in the club were like then and what they're doing now. And if you can see, and one of the points I try and make is that a lot of what happens with the Bullingdon Club isn't just sort of useful indiscretions. These people go on to maintain the connections they made in the Bullingdon Club 20, 30 years later when they're in high positions in journalism, politics, wherever, financial institutions, list goes on.
Rothschild, Nathaniel Rothschild.
Mr. Rothschild.
Rothschild, Nathaniel Rothschild.
Mr. Rothschild.
No, Mr. Rothschild.
Individuals are not just people who are fighting and clamoring for power. These are individuals who have power. They have money, they have resources, and they are willing to go as far as they can to cause chaos. Many people have been looking at Candace Owens and all the chaotic ways she has and wondering, where is George? Probably George is behind the scenes handling all the shaking. Probably she has said on her show, I have handlers. And she dropped it like a hot potato and no one cared to check again. George Farmer grew up in chaos. He knows the aspect and how the model of chaos works. And he is probably using his wife to cause chaos in the United States and in the world at large. How do you think this happens? It just happens like this. And many people would think that this is too much. Maybe it's exaggerated. Let me tell you, a movie was made, and that movie is titled The Riot Club. That movie is chaotic. When I tell you chaotic, I mean extremely chaotic. And even when the actors, directors, producers, and writers of the movie went to do fact-checking with individuals who know more about the Bullingdon Club, they asked them, do you think this is too much? They said, no, you have not even scratched the surface. Actually, that's a child's joke. That's to tell you how serious this is. And if you think I'm joking, I'm going to drop the trailer of this particular movie, a little aspects of it, and we will talk to the lead characters and their interviews, which they had with individuals who were well known and well linked to the Bullingdon Club, the director and writers, and their takes on what the Bullingdon Club is and how it inspired this movie and how this movie still was not strong enough to scratch the surface of the activities of this Christian boy, George Farmer's club, the Bullingdon Club. But, well, he is the old retired British persona. Okay, let's see how retired and old and conservative that is.
10 in the Riot Club.
They don't know when to stop.
The inspiration for the Riot Club is, of course, the Bullingdon, or Buller to its members. Founded in the 1780s at Oxford University, originally devoted to horse racing, but more recently to lavish banquets and the smashing of plates and other breakables. The club's diversity still tends to range from Eton to Eton, and its former members include the men today running London, the country, and the economy.
I am sick to death of poor people!
In the film, the Buller members are portrayed as cravenly immoral thugs and toffs. The least obnoxious is played by Max Irons, son of Jeremy, and I started by asking him whether it wasn't all a bit exaggerated.
I thought this can't exist, these people can't exist, but we did our research, and they do. And in fact, I think you took the first draft up to Cambridge.
Yeah.
And the feedback was, it's not extreme enough.
Yeah.
You know, this stuff happens.
What does it say about Britain that these sort of dining clubs still exist today?
I think that we still live in a worryingly unequal society. There are people out there who think that their wealth and their class give them license to behave however they like, and I think that's kind of the central metaphor of the story, is these boys believe that because they can afford to pay for the damage, they can do whatever they like.
And the fact that 3 former members of the Bullingdon are running the Treasury, the country, and the City of London, what does that tell you?
Well, I think it tells you that membership of one of these clubs is a stepping stone to high office.
But there's equality in terms of, you know, finances, and then there's the inequality of class, which this is what this film is really about. Do you think that the kind of visceral inequality of class, the poison of class, is more pronounced now than it was, I don't know, 30 years ago, 40 years ago?
Yeah, because I think class and wealth go hand in hand in that respect. And we seem to be living in a world in which if you don't have enough money to get you to the places where you need to go, then there isn't enough help available. There's a kind of, since the recession, a kind of leeching of kindness.
You heard her. They took the script down to Cambridge and they told them, this thing, you're just playing with it, okay? Take it up a notch. Ramp it up a notch. And that is how chaotic the Bullingdon Club was. This club has been linked to the aspect of very chaotic behavior, disturbing entire systems. And so if you have members of this club running Britain and handling finance in Britain, and you see them, they are in other sectors in the world doing things. Candace talks about people leaving one country to the other to cause chaos. Meanwhile, her husband left the UK and entered the US and is causing an entire chaotic scenario there, allegedly, in the way of the Bullingdon Club. Because I don't understand how you can tell me that a man who was this Christian, this deep in Catholicism, And all this lovely, beautiful essence of him ended up being in such a club, carrying out such activities, and it is stated your joining that club is not only about your wealth. Yes, George Farmer, his father ticked the box of him coming from a wealthy family. The next thing was for him to be willing to participate in the activities. Okay, and we are going ahead. You will hear about the initiation process in no time. Okay, you burning a 50 pound in front of a beggar, that's just if that's not elitism, what else is that? Please let me know. What do you think that is? Just being friendly?
Yeah, so the Bullingdon Club is this exclusive elitist society at the University of Oxford. It's only open to sort of the sons of the heirs to fortune and fame. So no women allowed. And it's infamous for the conduct of the members of the club, who go to the local pubs and restaurants and generally trash the place. They behave pretty appallingly. They dress up in, the aristocratic garb and basically play the fool. And yeah, the book is basically an analogy of this. Of course, Boris Johnson, David Cameron, George Osborne were all former members of the Bullingdon Club. But the book is an analogy for how they acted when they were part of the club, trashing restaurants. That mentality has basically seeped through to government, and they've ransacked the nation, they've trashed the nation, they've treated us all like they do, the silverware and the staff who served them at these restaurants in Oxford.
So that one of the initiation processes for getting into that club is burning a £50 note.
Allegedly.
Allegedly,
yeah.
Allegedly. And if I've not mentioned it before, everything in this video, my podcast, my mouth, my everything is allegedly. My name is allegedly Nimo also. Let's continue. As you've seen, the members of this club have developed a habit of chaos. They've developed that behavior that tells them that we don't care. Anything we can destroy and throw money at it. And that is the mentality they go with into the world, ruling the world, running the world, politics, money, podcasts. They just throw chaos at the world. And if the world comes to fix it, we throw money at it. And now we have a woman who is running her mouth on a podcast every day. She's #1 podcast in the world, not for nothing. I have said before, if George Farmer knew Andrew Tate before Andrew Tate became who Andrew Tate was, and then now Candace Owens has made #1 podcaster in the world. Remember 2022, Andrew Tate was the most researched person in the world on Google, right? Good. Now Candace Owens is the #1 podcaster in the world. George Farmer, what is your new product? Which one will be your new product? Allegedly. Okay, guys, please like this video. Don't you see what your girl is doing? I'm doing so much work. Please like the video, share the video, share this video. I would like Candace Owens to see this video and explain to us how her husband is this martyrdom of soft-spokenness, but is also a mentor of chaos.
There's strict rules of omerta, so secrecy, around the club, which I think speaks to its sort of privilege and exclusivity. There was a brilliant film, actually, you've probably seen it, The Riot Club, that came out a few years ago, which dramatised and perhaps exaggerated what goes on in the club. But in the film, one of the members is sort of, the blame's pinned on him for one of their nights of debauchery where, they trash a restaurant and beat up a pub landlord. They pin the blame on one individual, and then a current cabinet minister comes to see him the day after and says, "Don't worry, old chap, we'll sort you out."
Right.
And that's kind of the premise, that no matter how badly you behave within this club, you'll always have mates in high places. And that's kind of what we've seen during the pandemic and the post-pandemic years as well, is, corruption, arguably, certainly cronyism, jobs for the boys. And we've seen those who've broken the rules rewarded with public contracts, for one, and millions of pounds in jobs for speeches when they've left high office. So what's Boris Johnson made now in the few months since he's left Downing Street? 5 million quid.
Nice.
Nice, yeah. Well, all the rest of the country has to suffer with the aftershocks of COVID and the cost of living crisis. And that's the Bullingdon Club mentality.
Why is the Bullingdon Club banned from convening within 15 miles of Oxford? The Bullingdon Club is a private all-male dining club for Oxford University students. It is known for its wealthy members, grand banquets, and vandalism of restaurants and students' rooms. The club selects its members not only on the grounds of wealth and willingness to participate, but also by reference to their education. In 2013, the Daily Mirror reported an unsubstantiated claim that the Bullingdon Club's initiation ceremony required members to burn a £50 note in front of a beggar. Former members include 2 kings of England, Edward VII and Edward VIII, and 3 prime ministers, David Cameron, Archibald Primrose, 5th Earl of Rosebery, and Boris Johnson. On the 12th of May, 1894, after dinner, Bullingdon members smashed almost all the glass of the lights and 468 windows in Peckwater Quad of Christchurch, along with the blinds and doors of the building, and again on the 20th of February, 1927. As a result of such events, the club was banned from convening within 15 miles of Oxford.
Many of you will now be asking, how do you know that he was there? You don't have any evidence that George Farmer was there. George Farmer has just been this innocent Catholic boy who's been praying to the Lord, worshiping Jesus, and taking care of his wife and children. How can you say he is part of it? One, it's on his Wikipedia, like I've said before. If Candace Owens did not want that there, he would not be there. Every other thing that talks about him in public talks about it. The only person who doesn't talk about it is George Farmer. He just intentionally, he and his wife intentionally avoid talking about the Bullingdon Club. Oh yes, they do. Because they are trying to portray that image of this fine wine, beautiful couple, soft behavior, and then Candace Owens, the loud-mouthed, bombastic Americana, while George is pretending to be the soft-spoken, very quiet and reserved man, but he has been involved in so much chaos. Okay, now let me show you. A journalist has taken time, decades in the making, to verify most of these pictures, and there are very few that have not been verified. But here we are going to show you a picture of George Farmer in this, and he is not only there. Oh no, he's in South Africa doing what? Hunting. You remember when Candace Owens just got married to her husband? She couldn't stop bragging about how much she and her husband enjoyed hunting in Africa. Please, people should leave our continent alone. What is it now? All right, let's do this.
Now, I know that one of the things that's really helped in your research massively is discovering a whole load of these Bullingdon Club photographs, because one of the first pictures of David Cameron and George Osborne in the Bullingdon Club was published in the Daily Mail, and I think they got sued for it. So there was obviously a great deal of sensitivity about publishing these pictures of Bullingdon Club photos. People saying, well, it's a private photograph, you're not allowed to, and if you do, we're going to take you to court. And so there's been a reluctance to publish those photographs, but I know you've managed to get loads of these old photos of the Bullingdon Club boys. How did you manage to do that?
So, well, I did quite a large article on about exactly what happened in the Independent about 8 or so months ago. A lot of them were just hanging on the walls of a tailor called Eden Ravenscroft. Now, that's the tailor that makes the very famous Bullingdon outfit, which is reputed to cost around £3,500. And interestingly, I also dug up an old pamphlet called The Rules of the Club, and from 1850. The uniform back then is exactly the same as it is now. Now, effectively, a lot of these photos, some of them circulate online. You can find them in very old image archives. A lot of them are in college archives, so not really publicly accessible except to researchers or professional journalists. But I guess what surprised me was that no one had really done this before, even for the photos that were in public domain, which includes some very famous people.
This article by Tim DeRozan pretty much summarizes a lot of this. George Farmer in the Bullingdon Club. The Bullingdon Club's notoriety stems not merely from its decadence, but from the complete absence of consequences its members have historically faced. Restaurants trashed, college rooms destroyed, dress codes enforced by initiation rituals bordering on humiliation. All of it hidden behind wealth, connections, and the complicity of institutions unwilling to confront their golden boys. This is not simply about youthful excesses. It's about what destructive privilege looks like in practice. The belief that rules are for others, that money can mop up any mess, their reputational laundering will come courtesy of future peerage of PR firms. George Farmer inherited this playbook, and he now applies it in a political arena with disturbing effectiveness. Now, Farmer's tenure as chairperson of Turning Point UK marked the arrival of American-style grievance politics on British soil. What began as a youthful, focused conservative group rapidly degenerated into a platform for online trolling, misinformation, and performative outrage, often targeting minorities, academics, and journalists. Are you getting it? Okay, let's go. Let's cook. Rather than debate ideas, the strategy was to delegitimize institutions. You hear it? Mainstream ideas, mainstream media, universities, public broadcasters, even science itself.
Smart people don't need data. We've just been around.
I just know things because I've been around. Science, what it is actually, is a pagan faith.
Oh, this is a British person writing. You see where George is coming from and why Candace is the way Candace is? I think you can see it from here, okay? You can see it clearly now. What the Bullingdon Club practice in marble dining halls, tearing down and laughing at the rubble, Turning Point sought to replicate in public square. Critics who once condemned elite impunity were now cast as cultural Marxists or woke ideologies. It's a bait and switch tactic. Wrap all privilege in new populism, then claim to be the victim. Ooh, this is good. This is good. Farmer's political and media persona is a curious hybrid. On one hand, he presents as the Cambridge analytical class schemer, polished, connected, data literate. On the other, he trades in low-rent anti-intellectualism, surrounding himself with media figures who shout first and then fact-checked never. Ooh, boy. Ooh, boy. Isn't that his wife we are describing here exactly? Is there someone else we should describe with this? His marriage to Candace Owens has furthered his trajectory. Together, they represent a transatlantic pipeline of performative conservatism, wealth masquerading as victimhood, ignorance framed as authenticity. Right? George Farmer has been doing this in the UK. This is someone from the UK writing about George Farmer's activities in the UK. And then when he married Candace Owens, imagine the two of them times two. Imagine that kind of chaos. Imagine the chaos. America is going through a lot. I'm feeling bad for you guys. I'm so sorry, guys. But while Owens caught controversy through verbal, prytanics, Farmer's role is more insidious. He is the architect, not the arsonist, the one who finances the platform, signs the checks, drafts the legal shields. A reminder, behind every demagogue, there is usually a financier with plausible deniability. Ooh, George, you're so good at this. He has mastered this, okay? He knows how to work on this. The story of George Farmer is not just about one man. It is about the persistence of destructive privilege in post-Brexit Britain. It is about how elite impunity has moved from champagne-drenched vandalism into algorithmic disinformation, how political influence has shifted from backroom deals to Telegram groups and YouTube brands, how the old ruling class has learned to wear populist masks while protecting its own power. Farmer did not invent this model. He just embodies its evolution. The posh reactionary who despises elites, the heir to wealth who rails against entitlement, the vandal who now breaks systems instead of wine glasses. Isn't that the exact system Candace and her husband real and breed? They live and breed that exact system, and they are not backing down from it. In the end, George Farmer may be remembered not for what he built, but for what he helped erode. Fact-based debate, institutional credibility, and the idea that public service demands humility, not hereditary swagger. The Bullingdon Club may no longer meet in Oxford's finest dining rooms, but its legacy lives on in the smirking defiance of men like Farmer and in the wreckage they leave behind, and wreckage in the United States they have been leaving behind. Look at this picture perfectly well. That is George Farmer, who is number 8. Him and his buddies were in Africa, as they said, South Africa, having a time of their life. After shooting a shooting party, they have the goose they caught in front of them to have the little party they always like having. So Candace Owens can go ahead and preach to us about how the elite, the blah, 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 the Rothschilds and all that drama. Meanwhile, her husband is a system, not only a system, a product of that system. And she is not only a product of her husband, but she is having a handler. She admitted that very well. And I go as far as say, allegedly, he is a handler. He has practiced chaos. He has practiced it in the Bullingdon Club. And he just brought it to America, redefined it. And now his wife is in America sowing chaos across the Atlantic. And whenever she's caught in a lie, she now claims to be victim. Guys, this is not something that was started now. When I created what was Candace Owens' playbook, which I have the video, I will link it below, I told you all, Candace Owens has media outrage mastered. At that point, I was still looking at her husband, wondering if that is where she's got that thing from. And now that I have looked at it, all the investigation I've carried out, I can tell you that Candace Owens is allegedly her husband's product, and she is no other than another product of his, because probably Andrew Tate was another one as well, and she is another one. I wonder who will be George Farmer's next product, because he has mastered the art of chaos and he's going to cause chaos no matter what. He is going to drive Candace Owens, drive that truck till it crashes, then he starts another product, because what George Farmer is a factory manufacturing chaos in a system that doesn't know that it is about to be hit by the worst of the product it has been protecting in the name of elites of the Bullingdon Club. And when this thing hits them, they are about to find out in the worst possible way what happens when you protect this spoiled brats from childhood. They grow up with entitlement. They grow up knowing that you can throw money at anything, and they also grow up knowing that any mess they can make, they can get scot-free with. That is why he's sitting behind the camera. He is not in front. He is sitting behind the scenes, being the puppet master. Meanwhile, he has his puppet in front, being the chaotic one. And at the end of the day, she is the one who is sued, right? She is the one who is going to face all the consequences of terrible behavior. He is behind the scenes, and everyone is saying, "Oh, poor thing, poor George. He's so calm and quiet. Oh, poor George. Oh, George, so poor thing." Meanwhile, he is the master architect of this chaos you are all enjoying in America. Well done, America. You created monsters of your own. At least you can concentrate internally to solve the problems you have rather than looking outwards. Because from what we can tell from out here, you guys have a lot you're going through. And a lot is going through you guys, including the products of George Farmer. George Farmer is not this Christian boy boy who just went to Catholic school to study theology. Why was a boy studying theology also involved in the Bullingdon Club? So George Farmer went to school. He did not only love Christian life, he did not only enjoy being a Christian boy, he went to school and studied theology. And while he was studying theology, he told himself, why not I just get into the most secretive kind of skull and bones kind of club I can get into rather than just studying the theology? Why don't I just get in there, cause a wrecking ball around UK? Why don't I do that? And after he has left, he has not stopped causing that same chaos. Okay, George Farmer is a master architect, and Candace Owens, that 18 days engagement was the 18 days it took them for them to draw up the plan of their marriage, the contract, and draft it for each other to accept and agree on the terms and conditions of that contract. And by the 18th day, it was ready. That's why he did not have a problem sitting on a plane and calling her on FaceTime and say, hey, will you marry me now? Because that was a goddamn contract. It had nothing to do with love relationship. He himself said it. Nothing romantic was said. It's not my mouth. He said nothing romantic was said. She said nothing romantic was said. He didn't even take her out to dinner. Okay. He didn't buy her a flower. Didn't say I like you, love you. Didn't say anything. Didn't say I really find you attractive. Didn't say you really look beautiful to me. No. He met her. He was the perfect new product. And he went for it. So please, that is my thoughts. Guys, after all of this, let me know in the comment section. Share this video. I would like Candace Owens to come and explain to us how her husband was in the chaotic Bullingdon Club while being in Catholic school studying theology. And she's here preaching about God and claiming that she is this godly woman. She and her husband are this godly couple. But her husband is one of the biggest. You can see their main aim is to discredit everything from the media to the government. I'm not saying that these people are people that don't tell lies. They do tell lies, but we have seen evidently that Candace Owens tells lies as well. She tells you a lie, the next second she is back to another horse. She's riding it into the sunset and she doesn't give a care because she has been programmed to be a mouthpiece for chaos. Nothing else matters. As long as there's chaos, Candace Owens will be riding. And George Farmer will be in the background catching and laughing all the way into the Bullingdon Club echo book now. Until next time, guys, let me know what you think about this in the comment section. In the next video, we're going to look into other allegations that have come up on George Farmer. Allegations that he might not be playing in the team Candace Owens was hoping he plays in. And we have seen a couple of individuals come online to say a few things, but I think I want to dig deep to be sure what is going on here. What is going on here? I just find it suspicious. I'm being Candace Owens right now. I find it suspicious. Yeah, that somebody will come online, will not look for another man in the world to accuse of being the one who is loving on, who was doing things like that. It is your husband they decided to pick. Suspicious. Okay? Nothing is adding up and we have to find out. Until next time. Bye.
Raised Anglican. So you're at Oxford, you're studying theology. What moved you as an evangelical to the Catholic faith, which I imagine you were raised with a different understanding, a different perspective? Evangelicals do tend to hold a lot of, I would say, strong feelings against the Catholic faith, both here and abroad.
The whore of Babylon. No, that is, it's, some evangelicals would say that. But yes, of course. I mean, I was brought up in a home where I think it was viewed with suspicion at best. Although, to give my parents credit where it was due, they had always basically said that it was the personal relationship with Jesus which mattered more than anything else. And so, my dad has frequent examples of Catholics he had spoken to who he definitely knew had personal relationships with Jesus. But generally speaking, the Catholic Church was perceived of as nominal, like nominalism, where people just went, they didn't really understand where they went. and filled with superstition was the two phrases that were kind of stuck out.
Henry VIII may have had something to do with that.
Well, for the corruption of the Catholic Church in England was started with him for sure. But the persecution, actually, really, I should say. But basically, smells and bells was a phrase that frequently stuck around in my head from when I was growing up, because that was how the Catholic Church was perceived. But for me, in part, there was kind of a numbers component to it, and this is just something which I think is how my brain works. But I didn't really understand how we could be saying that before 1517, we just had this big kind of black hole of Christianity from the time of the apostles until Luther crops up. And so for me, that was like, okay, well, what's going on? Like, there must be some living faith in this 1500-year window, even if you want to call it like a 1200-year, 1300-year window, because for the first 200 years, you have the kind of apostolic age. So, what's going on in that period? And for me, that was like well, we're not just going to write off this entire period of history. And I do like to challenge ideas and concepts and just figure out what's going on. And for me, I was like, okay, well, you've got doctors of the church, you've got some of the greatest minds ever, like Thomas Aquinas, ever in human history, who occupy this period, as well as countless popes whose writings have been imbibed and kind of consumed by Western civilization since. So what's happening with these guys? Like, are they Christians? Are they not Christians? And so that was really kind of where it began for me. That was the early church, the first 700